Listen up. We've got to get in, grab the iguanodon, and get out before that asteroid hits. Let's roll!
Will Dr. Humphrey, Dr. Victoria Humphrey, please pick up the epidermal cell scanner from bay number 3? Thank you.
Hello, chicken. I will not talk.
We swim together. Yeah!
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mangello, and this is show number 407 for the week of May 24th, 2015. I am here to help you have the best possible Disney vacation experience and bring you a little bit of Disney magic wherever you are with this podcast, videos, blog, live broadcasts, special events, books, my audio tours, and more. Whether you're planning your first trip or you've been hundreds of times and like the details, secret stories, and more, there's something here for you. Be sure and go back and check out past episodes and subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and find everything else at WDWRadio.com. So my love of Walt Disney World really began in November of 1971 on my first visit when I was just 3 years old, and it grew with every new trip and adventure that I experienced with my parents and my brother. But my interest and fascination grew in large part to what I experienced not necessarily while in the parks, but in the car ride there or back or at home, because I loved reading and collecting and learning everything I could about what makes this place special, and getting to peek at photos from construction to behind the scenes or even just pictures of my favorite attractions really fueled my love of Walt Disney World. And over time, my interest and my book collection grew. So this week, we're going to share our 10 books that need to be in every Walt Disney World fan's library. Whether you're starting your collection or looking to expand, there's definitely a book, or 10, in this list for you. I then have the answer to our last Walt Disney World trivia question of the week and pose a new challenge for your chance to win a Disney Prize package. Then stay tuned to the end of the show as I'll have some updates and announcements, including more details about our next couple of meets of the month in Walt Disney World. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. My love of Walt Disney World really began on my very first trip at the age of 3 in November of 1971, literally weeks after Walt Disney World had opened to the public. And it was rekindled every year with pilgrimages that my family took like the Griswolds. We packed ourselves into the station wagon without seatbelts, facing the wrong way, and drove down to Walt Disney World. And the memories that I have of being in the parks on my dad's shoulders and sharing certain memories is really what started to light the fire for me. And I always loved, like every kid did and does that goes to Disney World, coming home with a different souvenir. And I remember specifically like the package of 12 souvenir postcards with the photos, and I would keep the A through E tickets and every scrap of paper from the room, including the contemporary and Polynesian letterhead. And yes, I still actually have soap from the Polynesian from way back. And as I grew older, I became fascinated by not only what brought us back to this place every year, but millions of people year after year. And I wanted to learn more, right? I didn't want to spoil the magic, but I wanted to learn more. So I read everything that I could get my hands on. And I actually can trace it back to a single book that was the catalyst for my Disney enthusiasm, and unknowingly, what would really kind of be the beginning of a journey that would ultimately turn my passion into my profession. So today, I want to talk about not just that book, but the many others that continued to bring me some Disney magic and insight when I couldn't get to the parks, and really helped me learn and appreciate more about a place that is, without question, very special for so many reasons. So today, we're going to look at 10-ish books that need to be in every Walt Disney World fan's library. And I know you're laughing when I said 10 because you know it's going to be more than 10. And joining me this week is a man who knows that 10 doesn't mean 10, but also really enjoys a good book on Disney, even the ones that have words in them and aren't just for coloring. He is Scott Otis, also known as Otisney on the Twitter. Scott, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Lou. Thanks for having me. Yes, I really can't wait to get delved into all these books because I love them.
Now, you wait, you say that you can't wait, but I first asked you about this segment 7 years ago in the Grand Canyon Concourse of the Contemporary. I remember standing there in the shadow of the Mary Blair mural, and you're like, I don't. I'm like, dude, you've got 8 trillion books on Disney, but
yes.
You've been researching for about 7 years now, and finally you're ready to do the show.
Yes, like Belle, I often have my nose stuck in a book, but I'm not very much of a speaker about them. I usually just kind of hoard them to myself and just delve through them. But now I think I want to share some with y'all.
And I've been to your house, which is it's a scary. It's like American Horror Story in there, it's a combination of American Horror Story and Hoarders kind of combined into one.
I've got a few things, yes, but chief among them is my Disney books and my Disney library, which is I think pretty extensive, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Well, look, I have hundreds of books, right, on sort of all things Disney, and thousands of documents. Most of them are still in boxes and acid-free sleeves and cardboard.
I hear you on that.
But you literally have a room, an entire room, and obviously a very supportive system around you to let you have this room dedicated to your Disney diary. It's like the final scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark at your house.
It's very similar to that, and my cataloging system is also similar to that, and that I have no idea where anything is. But there are sure a lot of them, and I've got a pretty nice bookshelf that I keep them on with ladders and rolling wheels and I even staff a couple of librarians to help me keep them in shape. But yeah.
The room is climate controlled and it's got under lock and key and like
I'm still working on all that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Everybody has to wear like white museum gloves and
I'm very insistent on those. Yes. I have very specific rules.
And nobody under the age of 18 is allowed in that. Not because there's anything like illicit in there. You just don't want any kids touching or coloring in your books.
That's become more and more difficult lately as I have 3 youngsters running around the place, but they're great. And I've even got one of them helping me catalog them as of yesterday. So that's good.
Put them to work.
Yeah.
Work and then send them here. So let me ask you quickly, how long do you think you've been collecting and what started it? Like for me, and I'm going to get to it because there literally was a single book that I can trace it back to. What started the interest in Disney book collecting?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was probably 1, 2, or maybe 3 books right around when I was 12 that I got, and I just read them cover to cover, and I just couldn't get enough. I didn't really start collecting books then, but I mean, I guess starting when I started a job here at Walt Disney World, I started, buying everything that was available. But it wasn't really until I discovered eBay that's what did it for me, because at that point I realized, oh wow, I could fill all of the holes in my library, and I just went nuts over a 2-month period. I'm sure I bought at least 500 books.
Wow.
Just getting everything that I could possibly collect on mainly Disney parks and Imagineers and the history of the company, but also the movies as well and the animated features.
Yeah, and so for today's purposes, we are going to try our best, and I use limit in air quotes, to limit this to books about Walt Disney World specifically. And I think it's obviously going to be very, very hard.
Very.
We talked before we got on. I'm like, I have got 30 on my list that I tried to pare down to 8, and then I've got like 15 honorable mentions. But I think, it was difficult to choose because the books they span such a wide spectrum.
They really
right?
do, yeah.
Historical to rare books to ones that enhance experiences in the parks. The only sort of limiter that I put on myself was I kind of took out of the equation the yearly planning guides, right? There are books that come out year after. Is that all you have? 2001, 2002, 2003. So I've taken the yearly planning guides out of the equation. It takes nothing away from them. They certainly have a place and they are fun in terms of planning for your vacation. But I really focused on ones that were about the history or about the details, or really sort of, and to use my expression of sort of peeling back the layers of the onion as pretty much as deep as they can go.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, the 1984 Steve Birnbaum guide, I got that right before my very first trip to Disney World, and I poured over that thing like crazy. And the thing is separated from the binding, but yeah, we're gonna hold off on those. Those are great, and I love them. But yeah, we're gonna do these other kinds of books that really do enhance your visit here and give you a deeper understanding of how these parks came to be.
Now, to completely contradict myself, I almost put one of the Birnbaum guides on the list because I do have the entire series going back to, I think it's 82 or 81, the old red ones, right? Remember the old red books?
Oh, yeah.
So, I like, for me, as somebody who enjoys the history and who has to research a lot sometimes, both for the show and for my books and for my audio tours, researching back moments in time throughout Walt Disney World history, those are excellent for me in terms of helping me catalog what was where, when. But I don't think it's necessarily one that needs to be in every Walt Disney World fan's library.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. Do you want to get started?
I do, and I'm going to kick things off to help sort of.
You're going first, huh?
I'm going to, because I want to make sure you don't steal my book, which you're going to. And I think, listen, obviously there's going to be a lot of overlap in our books, and these are meant for not necessarily one going back and forth, but really more about discussion. But I said in the intro, and I mean this sincerely, man. Like, I remember getting this book in the parks, and we drove every year back and forth. And Scott, I read this book over and over and over again, and I memorized the pictures, and I was fascinated. Although most of the stuff was of the attractions and shows that you saw on stage, but when they gave you a little glimpse of the planning of Walt Disney World and the construction, I will tell you, I was hooked. And I read it, and I have two copies. One that was my own.
I know which one you're going for.
You know exactly what I'm going for. I have one that was my own, and I bought another one that wasn't quite as dog-eared, because as much as I tried to keep it, pristine, I was also, a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid, whatever it was. And it's an 11 by 11 book called The Story of Walt Disney World.
That's right.
1971 commemorative edition. It's a behind-the-scenes look, a behind-the-scenes visit to the Vacation Kingdom of the World.
That's right. It's basically a giant square. It's in the shape of a D. It's black covered, and it's got the Cinderella Castle right in the middle of the D. And it's just, I have 4 copies of this one. They basically range from, the ones that I have are from 1971 through 1980. They actually have printings as far late as that. But yeah,
eBay, here I come.
Oh yeah, seriously. No, the pictures in here are just phenomenal. With all of, you can see the creation of the Magic Kingdom and all the hotels, as well as it's kind of a snapshot back to how Disney World was way back then.
Yeah, it's a great sort of combination of a souvenir book and a history book. And now, obviously, 40 years later, it is more of a history book for us, because when you do look at pictures of, the Haunted Mansion without the covered queue, and some of these, I'm just sort of paging through it very quickly, and you see the map of the only thing that was there was the Polynesian and the Contemporary and Magic Kingdom, and that was it. But it also taught you a lot about how it came to be, the history of it, and Walt Disney, and pictures of Walt, and copies of old newspapers, and blueprints, and maps. And then when they show you, like, there's something, Scott, for me about the engineering of Walt Disney World that fascinates me. Like, moving like hundreds of thousands of pounds of dirt and creating these water bridges and levees and streets. It just continued to blow my mind.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, there's some amazing stories here about like just even how they transported the 20,000 leagues under the sea submarines
through downtown Tampa.
Exactly. It really is just it's a great historical timepiece.
Yeah, and it was the behind the scenes stuff that really sort of got me. How they built the Contemporary, how they built the boats, right? How they built the castle. And it never was about spoiling the magic for me. It really made me appreciate just what they did even more. And I think that's when I kind of realized, like, yeah, there is something really, really special about this place. And on the very last page, and it wasn't even the page, on the back inside cover, it wasn't just about what was going on now or in the past, but it was
coming
about
in
tomorrow,
the future.
Right? Talk about how WED was working on this thing called Epcot Center.
Epcot, what's that?
And the beautiful artwork that they had of a very early concept of what World Showcase was going to be, a future world, and World Showcase was going to be, and that's when I was like, man,
Oh yeah, I hear it. And that actually, I don't know if that actually leads me into my first selection, if you don't mind the transition.
Absolutely. But I will say, you obviously they don't sell it anymore, but you can still get this one online in varying degrees of repair and disrepair, probably for $20-$30. I mean, if you get a really good copy from 71 in pristine condition, it's going to cost you more. But I think for me, man, this is like without a doubt must have in the library.
Pure gold. So seeing the preview at the end of that book about Epcot Center actually takes me to one of my my first book on the list, which is actually one of my first 3 books that I started collecting. Where I started my Disney book collection is Walt Disney's Epcot Center: Creating the New World of Tomorrow by Richard Beard, which was just the quintessential book about Epcot Center. I think this came out just before the park opened. It basically detailed every single pavilion, the construction of each one, and all the films that they made for them, and all the attractions. And there's some amazing photography of the behind the scenes of the creation of Epcot Center. This is just an amazing book that I've literally read cover to cover many times.
You can say hundreds. It's okay. We're not here to judge.
I mean, as a kid, this was what I was reading nonstop. This was one of my, and still remains my all-time favorite book, I would say. And
I'm with you because when we drove everywhere, and I'm not trying to date myself, but we didn't have cell phones or DVD players or handheld electronic devices with access to the internet in the car. We actually had to read books. This was one that came with me on a lot of trips because first of all, it's a huge book, right?
It really is,
it's probably 10 inches by 12 inches and about 230 pages long. Scott, I believe this book in hardcover format still remains the de facto book by and about Epcot Center that there is out there. I think it's such a wealth of information. First of all, I think that the photographs in here are ones that you can't find anywhere else. I love the behind the scenes, how it was all built. Even at the end, they sort of teased about other pavilions that were coming, right? Like Africa, right? They had a whole section on Africa. But the artwork and the philosophy of Walt Disney and how it sort of evolved from his dream, and it goes pavilion by pavilion. Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's probably 3 or so different versions of this book.
There really are. I know that there's 2 versions of the large hardcover book. One that actually came out right before Epcot opened, and one just shortly thereafter, where they actually substituted a few of the photographs, or that is, a few of the conceptual artwork with photographs within the park with guests there. And from what I can tell, the only difference between those 2 is some of the photographs, and there's probably about 90 different changes, but I believe the text is all the same. But then they also released a condensed version, a hardback, which I believe itself has 2 versions, which is, I have one of those too, but it's essentially 8.5 by 11, but with maybe only about half the number of pages, about 128 pages. Right. But still the same idea. just a little bit smaller.
Yeah, and this book too, as I'm flipping through it, I forgot. It has like multi-panel fold-out, almost like mini posters. This is still, when I do research for the show and other projects I do, this is my sort of go-to guide when it comes to Epcot Center. I think that there's nothing that even comes close.
Absolutely. And it is a time capsule because Epcot is one of the parks that has changed quite a bit since it first opened. And this is kind of how it was back then, because a lot of it has changed and it's not quite the same.
Yeah, and they really sort of break it down pavilion by pavilion, and even things like Communicore, where they go through the different exhibits and really relate it back to how some of the Communicore exhibits tie into the pavilions. I mean, they really sort of weave it all together. And unlike some of the other books, there is a ton of text in here. It is not just a picture book.
That's right, and it's some great reading. It'll tell you all about each one, and very, very detailed.
Yeah, and again, books like these, a lot of the ones that we're talking about, you can find on places like Amazon sometimes. I'll put links to some of these, but places like Alibris, Alibris, is a great place to find used books as well.
And certainly eBay as well. I think, did you mention that?
I'm sorry, is that EBAY?
EBAY.com, that's right. That's certainly where I got a good chunk of my books.
So for me, and this is another one, Scott, that almost took the top spot, but I think I put the first book, the Black Story of Walt Disney World book, in for sentimental reasons. It's certainly a very subjective book for me. But right behind that on my list, like 1A, was another book that I have multiple copies of, like you. And it came out much later, but I think at this point is when my interest in learning as much as I could and my appreciation for what I was consuming really started to peak. This is where I was actively searching out additional information and old newspaper articles and some of the more obscure books about the history of Walt Disney World. But I still argue that since the world began, Walt Disney World's first 25 years by Jeff Curdy with a foreword by Roy E. Disney is the perfect combination of beautiful. Again, we appreciate the beauty of a book, right? Mm-hmm. So it's in hard, it's in softbound. There's beautiful photography, great text. Like, I just like the way it's laid out. And it, too, covers everything from... I think this is a great sort of, for lack of a better word, almost like a great beginner's book, right?
A beginner's book, but also a good reference book, I find.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to that how things change. So this is the snapshot in time for 25 years and the 25 years that preceded it, right? So they have a lot of those photos that rather than you try and find 20 different books to get it, this is a great sort of compendium of a lot of those pictures and text.
Right. This is almost the most perfect version of those pictorial guidebooks, but it's so much more than that in that it does have the photos, but it has a lot of the text and basically the story of how Walt Disney World came to be, how it was created, and there's a lot of insets, basically asides, like almost like one about the creation of the Reedy Creek, one about the World's Fair attractions and how they came to make Disney World what it was, and things like that really add a lot to this book.
And as I'm flipping through it, I actually just found, and I was obviously using it at one point as a bookmark, I found my receipt for this copy of the book that I got from the Disney store in Menlo Park Mall in November of 1996.
Yeah, that's right. That's the year it came out, 1996. Yeah, so this is, once again, just a fantastic research book. Once again, it does go up to 1996, and everything that's happened to Disney World since then is, of course, not covered. But you'll have to get other books for that.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Jeff was able to sort of look to the future as well, where they talked about Animal Kingdom, they talked about upcoming resorts, they talked about Wide World of Sports. And when I said that this was a beginner's book, and I think sort of a great jumping off point, because for me, this is one of the ones that not every book has this, Scott, it has a bibliography in the back.
That's
so
right.
I was like, wait a minute. Like, I can go and dig a little bit deeper, and that's how I started to get to some of the other books in my library.
That's right. And so if you get this book and get every single book that's listed, you should be pretty set.
And so, granted, some of the books, and we're going to talk about some of them, I'm sure, some of the books in there are very obscure. Certainly some of the periodicals are a lot more difficult to come by. And this one, too, is one that comes in a couple of different versions. There's a hardbound and a softbound book as well.
I actually only have the hardbound version.
Oh, so I'm holding like a holy in my hand. Listen, can you hear? I'm holding a Scott Otis Holy Grail. And I would say, if you've never heard the name Jeff Curdy, yeah. So he is actually the only person, and now I've been podcasting for 10 plus years, 400 however many episodes. He is the only person I've ever interviewed to have a 2-part interview. Because it was so good. I was like, I can't cut any of this out. But we talked for like 3 hours. He was on show 221 and 222. And he's also the author of many, many books. Not just many books in general, but I think many books on our list. He did the Disney Cruise Line, Creation of the Disney Dream, the Disney Dossiers, the files of the characters from the studios, Disneyland Through the Decades, the Top Secret Files of the Disney Villains, the Imagineering Legends book, he and Bruce Gordon, Disneyland From Once Upon a Time to Happily Ever After, Then, Now, and Forever, the Walt Disney World book, The Art of Mulan, Tangled, Disneyland, Atlantis, Princess and the Frog, Mermaid, Bug's Life. He obviously doesn't get out much, but he sure is an incredible writer.
Yes, if you see his name on a book, it's a pretty safe bet that it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and it's what I love about Jeff's writing is I think he writes from a fan's perspective first, right? I always said that the reason why I wrote my book, which did not make the list, surprisingly, the reason why I wrote my book was because I wrote the book. Wait, it's not on your list. I wrote the book that I wanted to read. I get the sense that Jeff writes books that he wants to read as a fan.
That's right. And I can tell you that other book that you mentioned, the Walt Disney's Imagineering Legends and the Genesis of the Disney Theme Park, that one almost made my list here because it basically details all of the Imagineers that essentially created what we now know as Disney theme parks and all their various crafts and what they've brought. And I just wanted to mention that one as well, just kind of as I just slipped one in there.
Yeah, we're going to do that a lot because it was hard, man. This was a really, really hard. I mean, my top 10s, yes, it's tough to cut out, a location to have breakfast, but cutting out some of these books really is like a mini, not to overdrive, but it's like a little Sophie's Choice. She's like, oh, I love this book for this reason. I love this book for that reason.
Because, whereas this book doesn't necessarily discuss Walt Disney World in particular, it certainly details all of the Imagineers and all of the people that made it what it is. And so I thought it was definitely worthy of being a mention.
Yeah, that's definitely a book to add onto the list as well. So, all right, back to your list.
Yeah, it's my official list. Here's one that I believe they still have in the parks right now and is pretty available and also pretty reasonably priced and a great reference tool for each park, and that is the Imagineering Field Guide to the Magic Kingdom, to Epcot Center, to the Disney's Hollywood Studios, and Animal Kingdom. There's one book for each park, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw them all in there as one entry. But this is a great little reference book that you can actually take with you into the park. It's the perfect size, maybe just 3 inches by 6 inches or something like that you could take with you, and it's just got so much detail, basically about how the Imagineers created each of the parks, basically. And they go land by land for each of the 4 parks, and just talk about all of the conceptual artwork, basically how things came to be, even the creation of signs, kind of like they're setting the story for you, setting the place for you, and quite a lot of conceptual artwork as well for each of the attractions. And this is a really good one, and certainly one that you can even take with you to enhance a day at the park if you wanted to.
Yeah, and look, these books are, I say all the time on the show that there is no great big book of Imagineering. But if there was, this is going to be the closest thing to it. Because you're right. And the thing that, and look, I have a love-hate relationship with these books, and I'll explain why. I love these books, right? I love the fact, first of all, they're a high-gloss book. There's probably about 125, 130 pages in each. They're color-coded by land. I dig the little sort of call-outs that have, facts and figures, but I love the fact that you'll get an image of a bracket and how they design it, and the color choices and the squash and the stretch of Mickey's Toontown Fair. I love these books. I have 2 copies of each. One that I use for research. Don't laugh at me.
I'm not laughing.
Because I know, because the spine gets, you end up, breaking the spine a little bit. And I have ones that I keep. But when I said hate, I used air quotes, and I don't hate it certainly. But I literally, and this, you're going to make fun of me probably, but in doing research, I would literally have to take a magnifying glass because I hated the fact that the artwork was so small. I was like, oh God, blow this up. Like, I want to see, the design for Madame Leota's cart, like in a big 8.5 by 11 image, because there's such great detail that gets lost. But again, here I found pictures that I hadn't seen anywhere else.
Yeah, that is the one downfall of these books. I actually had the fortune of assisting Imagineer Alex Wright with the research into these books, and yeah, I mean, I think they definitely, because it's a field guide, they wanted it to be of a size that somebody could easily just slip in their pocket and take with them and enhance their day at the parks. And because of that smaller size, that is the chief complaint, the chief problem with this is that and there's a lot of really beautiful artwork in here. It's just very small.
Yeah. And look, and I think what is awesome, like at the beginning of the book, they really do give you an Imagineering 101.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
explain to you, I think if they explain to you not just how it's done, but why it's done. They tell you about the different disciplines. They tell you about some of the terminology that they use.
Yeah, that's actually a common aspect of each of these books. There's a history of Imagineering, basically going over each of the different disciplines that there are. But what's interesting about this book is that each of the books, they give like a photograph or an example of that discipline, but it's from that park. So it makes it more relevant, of course. And then, of course, there's also 2 pages of just kind of the Imagineering lingo, and that's actually common with each of these books. And he actually did make one also for Disneyland and Disney California Adventure to make a complete set for the domestic parks. And he's actually redone the Magic Kingdom one and Epcot since they first came out. So. At least they're keeping them up to date, and I think there will be some future ones as well that will be updated.
Yeah, and I think the subtitle of the book really describes it well. It really is an Imagineer's eye tour, as if Alex and the other Imagineers were taking you through and stopping and showing you the details from their perspective to make you understand more.
That's right. There's a lot of just even just hidden fun things within the texts of a lot of the signs, or like hidden details that you wouldn't find. And so some of it is that, but a lot of it is also just kind of detailing, whether it be an attraction or an entire land, and just telling you how they came about creating that, and basically telling the correct story for the guest.
All right, so I'm going to go from a book that is too small to almost one that's too big, right? And I'm saying that jokingly, but I will tell you that going from a book that fits in your pocket to one that doesn't fit on your shelf, I think you know where I'm going with this.
I believe I do.
But this is the Great Big Book of Imagineering. This is Walt Disney Imagineering, a behind the dreams look at making the magic real, and as a sort of 1A, there's also a behind the dreams look at making the magic more real. Like it's a secondary book, but it's hard to, I think calling it the Great Big Book of Imagineering is his closest way to describe this oversized book. It's probably 12 by 18, somewhere around there.
It's a big book.
It weighs about 107 pounds. But this is the one that, and it's actually laid out in a way that it makes you feel as though you're sitting at a drawing or a conference table, and the Imagineers are throwing out or dropping on the table pieces of concept art and old photos, and then talking to you from an Imagineering perspective. Like I remember there's one as I'm flipping through, it says, "What did you do at work today, honey?" And it talks about a day as an Imagineer, right? It talks to you about the labs. It talks about special effects and animation and creating signage and colors and posters and every little detail that 99.999% of the guests overlook. Like, how does a sign get made, right? How does, why do they make these certain color choices? How do they choose what type of rocks are appropriate for Africa? Like, all those things are explained in these books.
Yeah, and it really is a hodgepodge of all the different types of topics. It really doesn't have a particular order. There's actually not an index, which is my number one beef with this book. It makes it very difficult to find whatever you're looking for, but you could easily get lost in all the different chapters of this book. There's whether it talks about the history of a land, or even just the creating of the audio effects or the visual effects, or as you said, the signs of an area, and using all the different theme parks as their examples. It's an amazing book, and I think one of the things in the book that kind of tells you how many different disciplines there are in Imagineering is actually, before the initial book, they actually have glued on here an interoffice envelope with all the different Imagineers that a typical maybe a paperwork would go through, or they would need to have somebody check off something, and it gives you people. They have creative people, but they also have people from finance or creative services, collections management, show writing. There's so many different disciplines within Imagineering, and this is the quintessential book of that, using all the parks as an example. So that, and of course the second book that most recently came out, where they take the more recent parks that came out, whether it be I think from Tokyo Disney Sea, California Adventure, Animal Kingdom, Hong Kong, and it basically uses those as examples to further discuss everything that Imagineering has done. So these two books combined is just amazing.
Yeah, and for some reason, I get this question literally like once every week or other week, like, how do I become an Imagineer? And the first thing I say is, I don't know. I've never been an Imagineer, although, look, I've been blessed to be able to talk to them and share their stories. But the first thing I tell them is, go out and get this book. Right?
Yeah.
Go buy the Imagineering book. And I'm inadvertently going to mention there's also the Imagineering workbook and a couple of these really are written by the Imagineers. They tell you, like you said, Scott, about the different disciplines. You hear about some of the journeys of how people go from ice cream scooper to show writer, how every part is so interwoven. The thing that I love is really, it's the stories behind the stories, right? We say all the time that there is no plaque, other than there used to be in Pleasure Island. There is no plaque explaining to you the story of Tomorrowland, the story of Big Thunder, the story of Toontown. This book helps you sort of discover those stories, read the backstories, understand the thinking behind them, and then weave together all the details so you're like, I get it. I see why this is here, and then that's there because this ties into this, and then all the I get it. And all of a sudden, these are where sort of the aha moments and the light bulbs go off.
Exactly, and it even tells you where, as a guest, you don't even necessarily have to know the backstory, but how they create the story in such a way that it'll make sense to you, where you don't quite get the details of it. Do you know what I mean by that?
Right.
So this is just a great book for that, and I don't think you could fit it in your pocket.
Well, right. What I love too is that so many of the photos are not sort of the stock images that you've seen hundreds of times. These are very candid shots of Imagineers at work, of them working on scale models. Look, man, there's something that's fascinating to me about an Imagineer working on the wireframe model of Spaceship Earth or Big Thunder Mountain, and then how they scan it and scale it and build it, and how it goes from concept to creation to our being able to enjoy it is an amazing process to me. And you're also going to find stuff in here that never made it off the drawing board too. So this is a good opportunity to see some of the things that were talked about, right? No good idea ever dies in Imagineering, but haven't quite come to light.
Yeah, because if you just even look at the details of all the pictures, you'll see things on the walls that, oh, it looks like they were planning this at that time, or you can see some of the different models that they're working on, and see where in the parks that they ended up. So, yeah, there's definitely a wealth of information and photos in this one.
And I laugh all the time when you see on like TV or Facebook, like, oh, this abstract piece of art just sold for $19 million. I'm like, have you seen Dorothea Redmond's work? Like, that's some guy scattered paint on the wall, and look at some of the artwork that she has in here. Like, look at some of these incredibly talented people whose names you don't often know, right? Disney, I think Disney and D23 is where they have done a good job of bringing some of these people to light. But if you really want to have an appreciation, or if you're like, hey, this is what I want to do, this is a great sort of, I can't even call it an entryway, but it's a good entry point, but very advanced book as well.
All right. So where would this book be available?
I believe this book, I think you can still get it in the parks. Right?
I believe, not all of them have it, but I think I have recently seen at least the second one in the parks. But it's also pretty common on Amazon.
Right. And I'll be stealing your copy as well as putting that up on eBay. So right.
Oops. Okay.
And I think it's probably about $40 or so, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely retails. I think you can get it for cheaper than that, though, with some discounts on Amazon.
Yep. There you go.
So anyway, going on to my next choice, I would say I'm going to detail further into particular attractions within the park, some of the better known ones, and I'm going to include a 3-pack, if you don't mind.
We're in this. I'm looking at you like, I see you, brother. I got the same thing on my list.
And that is what I guess you could call the Jason Sorrell trilogy.
I called it the Jason Sorrell collection.
Which is the Pirates of the Caribbean from the Magic Kingdom to the movies, the Haunted Mansion from the Magic Kingdom to the movies, and his latest, the Disney Mountains, Imagineering at its peak. And these are some great books. Actually, the Pirates book and the Haunted Mansion book both have actually since been reissued with new stuff. But basically, Jason goes into every iteration of these attractions, that is, starting at Pirates and the Haunted Mansion. Basically, he talks about each one, the creation of the original at Disneyland, and then how it continued on to the Magic Kingdom, and then through the parks that are around the world, and just goes into incredible detail with the story making and the Imagineering of all of these, and at least in the different versions of the Pirates of the Caribbean, especially the one in Paris, is incredibly unique. It talks about all the different story changes within them, and then of course the same with the Haunted Mansion and Disneyland Paris's the Phantom Manor. There's just so much artwork and once again just Imagineers at work, and all the different storyboards and artwork that they created for each of these attractions. And then it goes into how they created the movies, at least with the Pirates of the Caribbean. I guess there now have been 4 of them, and they're working on a 5th. I think this only talks about the first 2 or 3 movies. And then the Haunted Mansion. Yes, there was a Haunted Mansion movie with Eddie Murphy. And it does talk about that some.
Did you rip out the last 25 pages?
No, I kept that in there. I don't access that as much. That's not one of Disney's best, but that's okay. And then this most recent book, the Disney Mountains book, he goes into every iteration of, basically starting from the original, which is the Matterhorn, and talking about the creation of that, which was the first steel tube roller coaster, and then going into Space Mountain that opened at Disney World initially in 1975, and then all through all of the Big Thunder Mountains and Splash Mountains, and even things like Grizzly Peak at California Adventure or Mount Prometheus at Tokyo Disney Sea, and all the different variations of Disney mountains and the rides that have come to be in them. And there's just a vast amount of material and just wonderful artwork about the creation of each of those and throughout the world. Just
man.
An amazing book.
Dude, I'm with you. I had this very, very high on my list. Like it was among the next two, the Sorrel collection, as it were. And actually, trilogy is soon to almost be, I think it's going to be a quadrilogy, because there's a new Haunted Mansion, Imagineering a Disney Classic from the Magic Kingdom book, supposed to come out this summer on paperback. I assume that is still on schedule. It's about a sort of really the attraction itself. But again, these are the very heavy softbound books. They're probably 8.5-ish by 11, high gloss. Like they're beautiful books, right? It's a coffee table book about coffee tables. It's they're beautiful. For all those people like myself that have always wished that you could take a behind the scenes tour of the Haunted Mansion and turn the lights on and be there, not just with current Imagineers, but with the people that helped create it, right? To go through with a Rolly Crump, or to go through with some of these other people that helped to determine the direction, right, of where it was going to go, that were in conversations with Walt. You know, I'm talking obviously specifically about things like Haunted Mansion and Pirates. Like, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating read to me. And then to that sort of logical progression, like you said, from Disneyland to Disney World to the other parks and then into the movies, again, tying it all in together. I think they're beautiful books. Like I wish you could almost buy them all as a 3-pack, because I think they all complement each other really, really well.
Yeah, and I've actually talked to Jason about this. He had so much material, but he was limited to how many pages he could have in the book. And they also specified that a lot of the artwork, especially in the Mountains book, had to be big. And he said he had at least 4 times the text that he had written for this book, but he had to cut a lot of it. And so hopefully there may be a future book. And I think he's also working on one for the George Lucas attractions.
Yeah, I remember him talking about a Star Tours.
Yeah, one that would combine the Star Tours, the Indiana Jones franchises, and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if those books are going to happen. And I understand, you know, it's one of those things. It's that delicate balance, because we're such visual people, and you can appreciate so much more by looking at the visuals. And I love the photographs in these books are beautiful. Like, I don't care what kind of you would just never be able to go through the attraction and get the angles and get the shots that are in these books. But by the same token, you do want that nice balance of text as well. And I think they do it. And actually, if you go back to I'm going way back in the archive. If you go back to show number 43, I interviewed Jason Sorrell probably for a long time, not just about his role, but I think we talked about, I think this is just when the Imagineering at its Peak book had come out. So I think we discussed all these books in detail. Yeah. So again, that goes back to show 43 from 2007.
Yeah, I think that book is probably my favorite, because it does discuss and delve into so many of the different attractions and the different iterations around the world, which I have personally had the fortune to go to. And the ones in Paris especially, like the Tomorrowland that they have there is actually a Discovery Land, and it kind of takes certainly a futuristic, almost what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, like the Space Mountain there actually is like from the Columbia Exposition, a combination of future but also past. Definitely interesting, and certainly their Phantom Manor is unlike any of the haunted mansions here, and the Pirates of the Caribbean. It takes what we know of as the story of the Pirates of the Caribbean in the order that it goes in, and it completely flips it on its head, and it goes in completely different order, and it actually makes a little bit more sense. And he talks about those kinds of things. And, of course, they also have Expedition Everest here at Walt Disney World, and even attractions that never came to be, such as the Western what was the name of that? Western River.
Thunder Mesa and the Western River Expedition.
Exactly. So
poor Mark Davis.
But yeah, so this is an absolute must-have, and I think they're pretty accessible as well.
So this is what I was afraid was going to happen, Mr. Otis. Right? We are 50 minutes in, and I don't even know what number we're on, but I still have, forget my list, I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 6 more books just on my desk. So
I have about 30 more.
Right? So this may, if people like this episode, you're going to have to tweet me and go to the comments section and let me know, and come to Facebook. If you like this, topic and want us to cover some more of these books in detail, let us know. But I think what we're going to have to do is maybe pick one more,
okay,
and then save some of the rest, because otherwise we'll do 45 minutes of honorable mentions. Because like the 6 on my desk, I have to mention for different reasons. So I don't.
we could probably quicken it up, and
I'm afraid to see which one I want to go to next. Because one of them is a much more academic book. One is more of a picture book. One is a souvenir book. One is a cast member only book.
Ooh, wow.
One is more story driven.
Let's see if we can tackle them quickly. Maybe not delve into them as much.
But they're so.
I know.
I'm hugging my book as if you can see.
But you go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to go over to an academic book, right? Just to sort of break things up a little bit. For those of you that really want to you want to get into the nitty-gritty of how this park came to be. And I don't mean just from 1971 on. I mean from 1964 through 1974, 75-ish. A book to get, and I think it maybe has 5 or 6 pictures. I mean, it is a very academic, but it's still a great read. It's called Florida's Disney World, Promises and Problems. It's a hardcover book, right? I'm going way back, brother.
You went way academic.
Dude, listen, it does not get much more academic than this, but I will tell you, man, again, for me, as a researcher who loves the history, look, when I was writing my books and doing my audio tours, historical accuracy is very, very important to me. I'm not saying I actually got it right, but in theory, it's very important to me. This is the one to get, right? And I don't want to say it's textbook-like, because it does very much follow a chronological format, but it really does take you through how the idea of taking this mucky, murky swampland and turning it into Walt Disney World came to be. And I don't just mean from an engineering perspective. I mean the purchases of the land and working with the state of Florida and working with the government and the financial impact and the social and the cultural impact. I mean, it's a very, very I don't want to say it's a dry read, but there's a lot of facts and figures and numbers in here.
There really are.
But if you want to understand the impact that Walt Disney World had, forget on modern culture and, on the state of Florida and Central Florida and the stories behind the stories about how this came to be, this is the one and only book that you need, because it has, it has referenced articles from newspapers from the 60s and 70s and interviews. I mean, it's very, very incredibly well thought out and very well researched.
That's a good one. And it even talks about the mistakes that they made with Disneyland and in the creation of Disneyland that they used to buy up so much land at Disney World. Basically, things that they've learned from that and applied to Disney World, and things such as the creation of the Reedy Creek Improvement District and all of that. That's definitely a good one. And
it's not a cheap one. This is probably going to cost you $100, $150.
It took me a while to find one.
Yeah,
but
in any condition. And take it in any condition just for the content.
Exactly. So I'll go ahead and add another one that's a little bit. This one actually has essays. This one is called Designing Disney's Theme Parks: The Architecture of Reassurance. by Carol Ann Marling. And this one actually has several essays about almost like not only the creation of Disney World and the theme parks, but also what they mean to a guest as being a guest, and how it can reassure you into thinking that the world is a better place. And this one is, I would say, less dry than that last one that you gave, and it does have a lot of images in it as well, both conceptual artwork as well as photographs. But it does have I believe a foreword, or at least an essay by Marty Sklar, if I'm not mistaken. Or yeah, he does one of the essays, The Artist as Imagineer. But there's basically, I think, 5 or 6 different essays. One's about making imagination safe in the 50s, Disneyland's fantasy art and architecture, or 40 years of overstatement, criticism, and the Disney theme parks. But it basically talks about mankind and the Disney parks and what they mean to the world. And I think that's a good one as well.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And I think this is a nice balance of a little more academia mixed in with some really, and I think that there's concept art in here that I haven't found in other books, which I like. I like the fact that it's unique to here. And you're right, it does talk about a much more global reach in terms of architecture and sociological impact, and there's interviews with Frank Gehry. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting, and I think it's nice to kind of end on this book because I think it brings in a very, very different angle than probably most of the other books on the list. Right? It is very much not a souvenir book. It is not a promotional book. It's not meant to be like, hey, we need to go to Disney World kind of book, but it really gives you a deep dive into the thought process in terms of design and engineering and execution. Right.
And this one is, I believe, something like 12 inches by 12 inches with a bright yellow cover. It's hardback with the picture of the Cinderella castle right on the cover, in case you were looking for that one.
225 or so pages. Like, you're going to get your workout. Forget CrossFit, man. Just buy these books and just walk around with them in your backpack. Like, that's a workout right there.
Just bringing the books into this room where I am right now recording this show, that was quite a workout because I still have a lot more to talk about.
I do too. I mean, I can go off the list that I made for this or just turn around and look at some of the books in here and maybe do this again, but only if people tell us that they like it. So you need to tweet me at Lou Mongello. You can also tweet Otisney, Otisney, and let us know that you enjoyed this on the Twitter. And come to the comment section. Go to wdwradio.com/407 and tell me, what's your book? What's the book that you need or that you keep going back to or is so incredibly dog-eared because you love it so much? Or maybe, what's their holy grail? Right? What's your holy grail of Disney books? And Scott, I'm going to ask you, do you have a holy grail of books that you other than the copy of Since the World Began that's in my hands right now, other than that book, is there one that you would just love to get your grubby little hands on?
I do, but I can't tell you what it is because there's so few copies of it out there that I still keep looking for it. It's that holy of a grail.
Yeah, and look, there are certainly a few. So I would love to know from the people who are listening, favorite books to read, holy grails that you'd like to get. Again, www.radio.com/407 or tweet me at Lou Mongello or go to the Facebook page. Also, make sure you follow Scott Otis on the Twitter and the Gram. He is at Otisney. And Scott, my friend, dare I say, we have to do this again?
We do have to do this again because I do feel as though this list is incomplete. We have a lot more to talk about, even with not just Disney World, but we need to delve further into the company. And I definitely have a lot of things to share with your listeners about Disney books.
Yeah, so don't yell at us. Don't be like, what are you thinking? Oklahoma, man. How did you not mention,
Trust me, it is on our list.
Yes.
We just didn't have time for it.
So we will be back and definitely do this again. And with top 10 coloring books, top 10 Walt Disney World coloring books. I got my Country Bear book. I got
Main Street. That's one of my favorites.
What about the comic book? Remember the old Epcot Center comic book?
Yes.
Like
Universe of Energy. Oh my goodness. So much to talk about.
It's time for our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where I invite you to test your knowledge of Walt Disney World history, or maybe see how well you pay attention to the details in what you see or hear throughout the parks and resorts. If you think you got it right, you can enter by email for a chance to win a Disney prize package. Before we get to this week's question, let's go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So we are right in the midst of Star Wars weekends here at Walt Disney World, and last week we did a live dining review of the Star Wars Galactic Dine-In Breakfast, where you could meet characters from the Star Wars universe and a lot of villains right there at breakfast, maybe trade with some Jawas. And for now, Star Wars Weekends is the only time and place that you can meet Star Wars characters in Walt Disney World. However, at one time, you could not only meet Darth Vader, but Luke Skywalker as well. And your trivia question last week was to tell me where, and if you think you knew, when you could actually meet Darth and maybe even catch his son in Walt Disney World as well. You were playing for all 7 of my virtual audio walking tours of the Magic Kingdom, including the brand new Tomorrowland edition, which was just released a couple of weeks ago. You can find out more or order yours at wdwradio.com/Tomorrowland. But going back to the answer to last week's questions, you actually could meet Darth Vader, and for a very, very short period of time, even Luke Skywalker, at the old Walt Disney World Village. And if you're not sure where that is, Walt Disney World Village was Lake Buena Vista Village. It's now downtown Disney and soon going to be Disney Springs. But back in October of 1977, just a few months after the first Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope, had been released, so I guess Darth Vader was tired of doing the whole media circuit and needed a little vacation. And where did he go? Darth Vader, you just changed history by being the most evil villain in the most successful franchise of all time. What are you going to do next? I'm going to Disney World. He went down to the Captain's Tower over at the Walt Disney World Village and met guests and did pictures and autographs and everything else like that. And there were other stars there as well, including his son, not Luke Skywalker, but Mark Hamill was there, and some other stars from the movie signing autographs and giving out posters. But yeah, so Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, and some of the other stars for Star Wars used to be able to meet in the Walt Disney World Village. Congratulations and thanks to all of you who got this one correct, and a few of you who had memories of meeting Darth Vader as kids or adults back in 1977. I randomly selected one correct entry from all the entries that I received via email this past week, and the winner of all the audio walking tours is Mark Knopson. So Mark, congratulations. Everybody else, thank you so much for playing. If you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So this week, let's see how well you pay attention to what you hear in the parks, because all you need to do this week is identify where in Walt Disney World you heard this phrase. All right, the circus might be a good way to spend the afternoon. There you go. All you need to do is tell me where in Walt Disney World you can hear, or could have heard, that phrase. Email me at contest@wdwradio.com by Sunday, May 31st at 11:59 p.m. Once again, you're playing for all 7 of your audio walking tours. And this week, just because I'm in a good mood, I'm going to also send you a copy of my 102 Ways to Save Money for and at Walt Disney World book. So good luck and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in this and every week. Whether you are a first-time listener or have listened to all 407 episodes, I sincerely appreciate you sharing your time with me and letting me share my passion for Disney with you. Also, big thanks to all the new members of WDW Radio Nation. I just finished sending out this past week lots of care packages and t-shirts and logo gear and backpacks and scavenger hunts and a few other surprises as well. If you want to help the show and become part of WDW Radio Nation, you can visit wdwradio.com/support. It is completely optional, but a great way to get some additional benefits and rewards, including monthly scavenger hunts and custom Magic Band covers, t-shirts, care packages from Disney World, exclusive live video group calls, and lots more. And of course, don't forget that a portion of the proceeds of your contribution goes to the Make-A-Wish Foundation through our Dream Team project. Again, to find out more, visit wdwradio.com/support. Also, be sure and visit WDWRadio.com. There's lots more there in addition to the podcast, including multiple daily blog posts from a great team of blog writers. We have a free email newsletter, videos, free app for your mobile device, and don't forget to join us every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for WDW Radio Live, where I do a live video broadcast where we talk about this week's Walt Disney World news. You can be part of the show as you chat and ask and answer questions in the chat room, and then I stay on for a while after. Talk about anything you like, and so you can sort of ask me anything in the lightning round. Again, that's every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can watch by visiting WDWRadioLive.com or downloading the free Ustream app and doing a search for WDW Radio. You can watch from your mobile device, iPhone, iPad, Android, whatever it may be. Also, be sure and connect with me on Twitter. I'm at Lou Mongello there, and on Pinterest and Instagram, Facebook.com/Lou Mongello. You can follow my personal profile there, or like the WDW Radio page at Facebook.com/you guessed it, WDW Radio. And while I love having conversations with you online, I believe that nothing beats a handshake and a hug, and that is why I continue to do for the past 7 or 8 years or so, Meet of the Month every month in Walt Disney World. The next one is going to be June 14th in Tomorrowland at Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe. Inside, I promise. We're going to celebrate the release of the Tomorrowland audio tour and the release of the Tomorrowland movie starring George Clooney. Again, that's going to be Sunday, June 14th. We're also going to meet July 19th, August 30th. We're going to have a day at Typhoon Lagoon. Other meets coming up as well. You can visit the events page at WDWRadio.com and RSVP. Just let us know that you're coming on the Facebook event page at Facebook.com/WDWRadio. I'm also going to be doing other events on the road, as I'll be traveling a lot throughout the year, doing a lot of speaking engagements and conferences, including Podcast Movement this summer in Fort Worth, July 31st through August 2nd. I'll be delivering the keynote there, and we'll definitely do a meetup while I'm in Fort Worth as well. You can visit LouMongello.com to find out some of the other places I'll be speaking. And if you want me to come, maybe speak to your business, to your conference, or to your kid's school, you can check out my speaking or schools page. And if you're looking to take that thing that you love and want to turn your passion into your profession, I want to help. I have a new small group of like-minded entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and podcasters forming now. The new group is going to start on June 23rd and is limited to less than 10 people, and there's only a few spots left. For more information, visit LouMongello.com and click on the Work with Lou tab. Thanks as always to Mouse Fan Travel there, once again sponsoring our WDW Radio group cruise to Alaska, which we're leaving on in just a couple of days. Super excited for that. Going to come back with lots of content and audio and video and pictures to share with you. If you can't join us in Alaska, please come next year, February 3rd, for a week-long cruise on the Disney Fantasy. This one's going to be special because not only are we celebrating the 9th anniversary of WDW Radio, but it's also one of the few exclusive Star Wars Day at Sea cruises. So there's going to be a lot going on with the Star Wars events, all the things happening on the Disney Cruise Line, and all of the special events that we do as a WDW Radio group. For more information or to get a free no-obligation quote, visit WDWRadioCruise.com and visit MouseFanTravel.com, whether you're coming on this cruise to world, land, sea, Aulani, wherever it might be. Becky and her team of agents can help you get the best possible price, answer all your questions, all at no additional cost to you. And go to CelebrationsPress.com. Get a little bit of Disney magic delivered right to your door or your mobile device with Celebrations Magazine. And as always, my friends, and you are my friends, whether we have met yet or not, all I ask is that if you like the show, please help spread the word. Let others know about it. Tell your friends. Tweet out that you're listening. Share links and comment over on Facebook. And please go to iTunes, rate and review the show there. That is really, really helpful. Very much appreciated. We now, thanks to you, have more than 1,000 reviews in iTunes. Please keep them coming. I want to thank some recent reviewers like DJ Shortstop, Taxing Taylor, Clark, Ream, Seagust, and Ryan234. If you go to iTunes and search for WDW Radio or visit WDWRadio.com/iTunes, that'll take you right there and show you exactly how to leave a rating and review. And finally, and most importantly, I want to give you my sincerest thanks once again. Your time is so valuable, and the fact that you take time out of your week to share it with me and listen to the show and email and tweet me means more than anything that you know. And if I can help you and say thank you in some way, please let me know. And in the meantime, I hope that you start taking steps, however small they might be, to pursue that thing that you love. so that you could wake up happy and excited and encouraged about the day. But remember that nothing worth having comes easy, but the goal is going to be worth your sacrifice. Have faith and always keep moving forward. And most importantly, have an amazing week this week. So until next time, see ya.
How's it going, Lou? This is Brian Rainey from Kansas City, Missouri. And just want to let you know I'm at the Orlando airport. I just finished up my vacation last night. And I'm worn out. 4-day hopper pass will do that to you. But just want to let you know I had a real good time at the meet and greet on Saturday. Had a good time at the Star Wars weekends. I've always been wanting to do that, and glad I finally got to experience the Star Wars weekends. Anyway, it was fun talking to you and talking to Chris. And I did have the pot roast mac and cheese at Magic Kingdom, and man, that's some good stuff right there. And I also took Chris's advice and had the burger at the Brown Derby, and that may have been one of the best burgers I've ever had. But anyway, got to leave Disney sometime, so hopefully I'll be back pretty soon. But anyway, talk to you later. Thanks.
Hey, Lou, it's Chris in West Palm Beach, mixed team in the box. I just wanted to give you a shout back. Had a great time on Saturday the 16th for the meet of the month. Just a blast, bud. Again, always meeting really cool people. Shout out to some people I met there that I'll get to soon. I've got their email addresses, Chris Gervais or Gervais, Brian Casey, Brian from KC. He made a big trip. He's a basketball guy. He's down here for basketball. Adam Bonaventure. Nice to meet Beatrice Feeney. Jimmy Styles. Nice to meet you. Just a lot of cool people, man. Had a good time. And wish you all the best, bud. All right? Best to your family. And look forward to the next meet. And give me a shout when you can, buddy. You take care. Bye-bye now.
Hello, Lou Mangello. It's Darlene Nagy from West Seneca, New York. Recently returned from Florida in Walt Disney World. I had a wonderful time. But now I am on the countdown, and it is under 10 days for our WDW Radio Alaska Wonder Cruise with all of our friends and family. I am so excited to see everybody and to be in an adventure of a bucket list trip. And on the ship, I'm going to do a lot of sightseeing with having 3 days at sea, which will be very nice because I haven't done that before. And I think we're going to do some exploring. There's the Cadillac Lounge Adult, Cove Cafe, which is for adults. Then you got Families by Day for diversions, and then adults at night. You have Promenade Lounge, beverages and snacks and internet for all ages. You have Signals for 21 and over, which is adults, and the Wave Band is all ages during the day, but then it's for adults at night. So we've got a lot to check out while we're on this ship. I can't wait. See you all starting next week Saturday. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying next week Saturday. Everybody have a magical day. Have a great weekend. Happy Memorial Day. Hugs.